For me, first of all, I would say that the biggest mistake that I ever made as a CEO was not firing fast enough. And I know you hear that from a lot of the entrepreneurs that come through this class, but it's true. And nobody likes to fire people, and I tend to really like to give people the benefit of the doubt. So early on, I would go out of my way to rationalize not firing people. I mean, I did more death row pardons than anybody you've ever met in your life. And ultimately, I realized in some cases that that was crushing a company. There was one company where I knew almost intuitively from day one that the CTO was just blowing smoke at me and was not getting it done. And I kept trying to redirect him. I reached out to the VP of engineering. And finally, there was one week where this most junior engineer, and every time you come into a failing company, or at least every time I did, I'd give some sort of rah-rah speech about my door is open and come on by. And this one week, I would watch this junior engineer sort of like pace, then sort of walk past my office. And then the next day, I watched him, and he did it for like 3 days in a row until I finally one day just grabbed him and pulled him into my office. And in this halting voice, he said, "I have never been anywhere where it was just so okay to fail." And I realized that my cowardice or not wanting to really confront my firing problem was having a negative impact on an entire organization, and that I was doing a disservice to all the people that were under the top of that pyramid. In terms of firing horror stories, I've had them all. I had to fire somebody on a private jet once and then sit with that person for 2 more hours of the flight. And the exchange got so heated, and one of the people on the jet was actually, it was a test run to see if they were going to buy the jet. And all I remember is that as people were screaming at that point obscenities back and forth to one another, the jet salesman was in the back of the plane and he was reading Tom Brokaw's book. And I know this because as voices got louder and louder, he kept pulling the book closer and closer and closer to his face until that's all I could see. But firing is something that you have to get used to. You should do it in the fastest, most compassionate way possible. You should always do it the way you would want to be fired. You should try and have a documented performance record if it's a performance-based firing. If it's a money-based firing, you should also have a good explanation for people, and you should do the most you possibly can for people on their way out the door, in spite of what the venture capitalists on your board tell you to do, which is to hoard the resources, because if they were good enough talent to hire in the first place, you may want them again, they will remember, and wherever they were landing, they're going to tell people how they were treated. So try and always keep that in mind.